some members of Montreal's Vietnamese community are concerned about the safety of imported fish from Vietnam, and they're speaking out. They've organized a petition against the government to check imported Vietnamese fish more thoroughly for toxic pollutants. The petition is being sponsored by a local MP from the South Shore, and we're going to hear from her in just a moment. First, Dr. Dinh Duong is a cardiologist from TMR, and he started the petition. He joins us live in the Daybreak studio. Dr. Duong, good morning, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
What are your concerns about imported Vietnamese fish?
Please allow me a few seconds to talk about the disasters in Vietnam so that you can understand my project. We are a group of Canadians of Vietnamese origin who are aware of ecological disasters in Vietnam through our family contacts and social media and official Vietnamese news. And unfortunately, these ecological disasters are not covered by the world press, so it's largely unknown.
And one in particular is a steel plant, right,
yes,
that had toxic effluent discharge that was going unchecked for some considerable amount of time.
Yes, in April 2016, there is a steel plant in central Vietnam named Formosa who dumped a lot of toxic waste into the Pacific Ocean, killing massively the fish and the marine ecosystem in the Pacific Ocean bordering 4 provinces. We are talking about an ocean here, not a lake. And still the pollution is still going on. And despite all the protestation from the population who suffer from this condition, there's no measures to clean up the environment, to clean up the toxic waste. And according to official reports, we know from the censored Vietnamese media, we know that these fishes are contaminated with cyanide and phenol. Okay.
And Dr. Duong, in terms of the fish that is available here in Canada, what are you concerned about?
Yes, most of the fish that are imported from here to Canada comes from Delta Mekong, and the Mekong Delta is already heavily polluted, and we know more and more. There are more and more industrial plants that are building up along the river shores with very deficient wastewater management. And a lot of these industrial plants just dump directly the toxic waste into the Mekong River. And guess what? The Mekong River is the exact site of aquaculture of Pangasius fish and shrimps that are imported and exported abroad.
Pangasius, I always have a hard time pronouncing that word, yes, but it is a white fish, right?
Basa fish, tra fish, or Pangasius, you can find it very frequently. And
it's cheap.
Very
crucially.
Cheap, $4 a kilogram. There's no way fish produced by Canadian aquaculture can match the price. So I wonder, there's an ironical situation where you can have rich people in Canada having good quality biofish and poor people buying Pangasius fish, possibly toxic.
You were saying, we had a chat in the green room a moment ago, and you were telling me that in Vietnam, people who have money,
yes,
tend to import their fish.
Yes, we have Vietnamese coming to Vietnam and find out that rich people, they buy imported fish from Canada, frozen fish, frozen food, whether fish or chicken for consumption, for safety. And on the other hand, in Canada, we allow the importation of cheap Vietnamese fish to our poor people. So that is very strange.
So what do you want to achieve with the petition?
We would like the Canadian government to check more thoroughly the fish that coming from Vietnam, because as you know, the checking for pollutants and manifesting for the environment is considered subversive in Vietnam, and so we don't have the exact information of the toxins that are involved in the fish, and the only way to know is to inspect them on arrival here.
The government says it does check the fish, not every single fish, but it has a regimen, and it says it's confident in the fish that is sold in Canada. Do you have evidence that leads you to believe that the fish is toxic here, available to Canadians to buy?
I don't have a direct proof, but according to our circumstantial evidence and the worries that people from Vietnam live in everyday life about the toxicity of their food, I want just to raise the alarm, to ask the government to check for it.
How do you choose your fish?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm a Vietnamese man, so my wife takes care of everything. So she buy all the fish. I myself just eat. She's a very good cook, so I really, I think she buy Canadian local fish, and I think we should do that because we should encourage Canadian local fish to avoid the toxicity. And I would like also to emphasize that the fish imported from Vietnam, the problem is not only Vietnam, it's all involved also China, because according to the papers that is published in this weekend by Madame Stéphanie Bérubé in La Presse and Madame Marie-Claude Lortie, Canadian does import $900 million of fish and seafood from China, and 17% of these samples that are rejected by the Canadian agency that because of contamination come from China as well.
Dr. Duong, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate your
for
time.
Inviting me.
And Dr. Duong is a cardiologist, lives in TMR, and he works at Charlemagne Hospital. And he's the person who started the petition. Live on the phone from Ottawa is Minh Quach, who's NDP MP for Salaberry-sur-Loire on the South Shore. She's sponsoring the petition in the House of Commons, still open for signatures. And Minister, or rather, Minh Quach, good morning. Thanks for speaking to us.
Hi, Mr. Sinerty. It's a pleasure to be there.
Why did you want to sponsor the petition?
It's because it's a great concern for everyone in Canada. I think we should raise awareness towards this issue. The Vietnamese community came to me both from Montreal and from Toronto, and especially Mr. Duong and his colleague, who is Madame Pan Van, and they all ask for more information from the government for the inspection of seafood coming from Vietnam especially.
Can I read to you what the Canadian or the Canada Food Inspection Agency has told us, because we represented Dr. Duong's and your concerns to them and asked them about their regime of surveillance, and they say this is a quote now, the CFIA has a robust program for surveillance and inspection for imported fish and seafood, both random and targeted inspections. The agency steps up surveillance of imported products based on our own inspections and knowledge of issues in foreign countries from where the fish is exported. They say that in cases where fish and seafood is found with pesticide residues, veterinary drug residues, or any other instance of non-compliance, that they apply targeted inspections on the next 4 shipments from the same source, and they will not release any product unless they're satisfied it meets Canadian requirements. And in such cases, we inspect 100% of the targeted imported product. Is that not good enough?
It's what we look to, but from what I know, it's the only information that we have right now. It's that only 3 to 5% of the fish and the seafood products imported in Canada are inspected by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. And we looked at the last budget from between 2016 and 2018. The sub-program on fish and seafood salubrity will decrease by 16 million. So I hope that after this spill in Vietnam, the spill from Formosa, that 100% of all the fish and seafood coming from Vietnam and the fish sauce, for example, that a lot of Canadians are consuming,
for sure,
that I have in my kitchen. I hope that those products, as this is the fish sauce and the pangasius, as Mr. Duong, Dr. Duong just talked about, are all inspected, 100% of them. So that's why I put a question on the order of paper to know which are the products that are tested, inspected by the Canadian agency, and for which products they are tested, and how many of them. So how often, and after the spill at from Formosa, did we increase the inspection, or are they still all the same? Is it a mix of
So these are questions you're going to be asking in the House of Commons.
Yeah, I already asked those questions. I already tabled the petition in the House, and I asked the federal government. In fact, I asked just in last December, when our Prime Minister Trudeau was in Vietnam to talk about trade deals. I asked him to put pressure on the government, on the Vietnam government, to release the prisoners of conscience that were part of the demonstrations related to the Formosa spill. And up to now, we don't really know if it was part of the discussions there in Vietnam. So if we are still getting into the negotiations to the CPTPP,
the new trade agreement,
are we going to talk about human rights? Are we going to talk about environmental rights and labor rights?
And Minh Tu Quach, thank you very much for speaking to us. Appreciate your time. She is the NDP MP for Salaberry-sur-Loire. And if you have thoughts on this, 514-566-9066. How do you approach buying fish? How good do you feel about the quality, the safety of the fish, and the Canada Food Inspection Agency? Let us know, 514-566-9066. 9066.